esteemed colleagues and friends from around the world, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whichever may apply. My name is Les Stein, a proud member of the Global Symposium on Leadership and Project Management team. It is both an honor and a privilege to welcome you to our fourth annual Global Symposium. Today, we gather as a vibrant community of visionaries, problem solvers, and innovators united by a shared commitment to advancing the frontiers of leadership and project management in an ever-evolving landscape. Please note, both days of the symposium will be recorded, and also, during our presentations, please use the chat box for questions or comments. The moderators will be checking them on a regular basis. We find ourselves at an extraordinary crossroads, one where the pace of change is accelerating and the need for adaptive, responsive, and inclusive leadership has never been greater. Project management, the discipline that transforms ideas into reality, stands at the heart of this transformation. Whether you are delivering groundbreaking products, steering organizational change, or building sustainable systems for the future, our work shapes not only the success of our institutions, but the very fabric of our global society. This symposium is more than a meeting of minds. It is an invitation to dialogue, to share ideas, and to challenge the status quo. Between today and tomorrow, you will hear from leading experts at the forefront of their fields and engage with peers whose experiences span continents and industries. Our theme this year is transformative leadership and project management, driving innovation, sustainability, and ethical collaboration in a dynamic world. Invites us to reflect on what it truly means to lead and to deliver, when the stakes are high and the future, as we all know, is uncertain. We will explore the many trends shaping our profession, from agile methodologies and digital transformation to the ethical stewardship and resilience in the face of disruption. Through presentations and open discussions, we hope each of you finds not only new insights and tools, but also lasting connections that will inspire your professional journey long after the symposium concludes. I encourage you to approach these 2 days with curiosity and openness. The diversity and richness of perspectives at this gathering are our greatest strengths. By learning from one another, we can better champion innovation, cultivate trust, and drive meaningful, positive change. Please remember that the future of leadership and project management is not shaped solely by grand visions of technological breakthroughs, but by the character, courage, and commitment of people like you, dedicated professionals who strive to make positive difference every day. I want to thank the organizing committee, Dr. Jacques Alexis, Dr. Adel Zadeh, Dr. Amar Amer, Dr. Serhi Kovela, and Dr. Sanaz Ghazi for their tireless efforts in preparing for this symposium. And on behalf of the committee, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the leadership of Northeastern University's College of Professional Studies, whose continuing support makes the annual symposium possible. And to each of you for your participation and engagement. I also want to recognize our project intern, Corbina Dufour Asante, whose work on behalf of the symposium has been exemplary. Today, we gather to make this meeting, the symposium, a catalyst for inspiration, growth, and progress. And now, I would like to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Lavagnon Ika. Dr. Ika is Professor of Project Management and founding director of the Major Projects Observatory at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa. He is also extraordinary professor at the University of Pretoria, a contributor to the most recent debates on major infrastructure delivery, and a world leader of research on managing global development initiatives, such as World Bank projects in Africa. His work on project behavior earned him the International Project Management Association Global Research Awards in 2017 and 2022. He is the co-author of the Cambridge University Handbook on Project Behavior and the award-winning 2024 Project Management Institute Book of the Year, Managing Fuzzy Projects in 3D. There's so much more I can say about Professor Ika's professional accomplishments, but in the interest of time, it makes more sense to hear him address our symposium on the question of how can project leaders navigate geopolitical uncertainty. Obviously, this is a very timely topic. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Lavagnon Ika, and from a personal note, I would like to thank you, Dr. Ika, for joining us and being a part of this symposium. Dr. Ika, the floor is all yours.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Stein, for such a nice introduction. Hello, Northeastern. Hello, project management community. Greetings from PMI Global Summit Series in Kigali here. That's where I am now, delivering this talk. I'm delighted to be with you. I would like to thank you for the kind invitation to give a keynote here at the 4th Annual Global Symposium on Leadership and Project Management of the Northeastern University, your university. My friends, born and raised in Benin, West Africa, a tiny country close to Nigeria, I know far too well about uncertainty, or if you prefer, the propensity of our lives to get into trouble. So I could not, many of you are aware of that game that is called football in other parts of the world and soccer in North America. You know, I could tell you that until 17 years old, because of the uncertainty that surrounds our lives, I could not play soccer in the front of my parents. Do you know why? Simply because they were worried that if I play soccer, things will happen. In fact, to be blunt, sorry about that, in their mind, in their psyche, shit will happen. What does that shit look like? Of course, you know, the way they were thinking at the time and knowing the environment in these African countries, you could understand and relate to that. If you play soccer, then you will break your legs. And if you break your legs, then you will lose mobility. If you lose mobility, then you will ruin your life because there is no safety net. And they were aware of that uncertainty on the heads of a kid like myself. So it was only after 17 years, when I turned 17 years old, that I was able to play for the first time in front of them. Fast forward. So when I became scholar, I sought to understand projects and project management. And I realized that uncertainty was part and parcel of projects and their delivery, especially in the case of international projects. So if you are an executive tasked with project oversight or a project manager tasked with project implementation, especially within the realm of international projects, you know far too well about uncertainty, the propensity of a project to turn into trouble. So you know that there might be, you know, exchange rates problems, exchange rate between Canadian dollar and the US dollar, for instance. You know that, you know, there might be a change in the foreign policy government. You know that, or even a change in government whatsoever that would affect your project. So you know that uncertainty is a big issue in the delivery of international projects. But what I would like to talk about today is a special form of uncertainty, a phenomenon that deserves a name and an elaboration. I'm talking about geopolitical uncertainty. We don't speak much in the field of project management about geopolitical uncertainty. But if you are a project manager or an executive, you've been grappling with geopolitical uncertainty for ages, for sure. But what is happening now is that we are living at a time when geopolitical uncertainty has skyrocketed. And that's why it delivers attention in both theory and practice. So I came to think about the topic because a UK consulting company approached me to write a thought leadership article. And I was asking myself, you know, what can I write about? then Trump tariffs, and you know that Trump considered that tariff is the beautiful word in our dictionary, right? Okay, or a beautiful word in the world. And he said that many times. So I was thinking about tariffs, and then I said, yes, I got my topic, geopolitical uncertainty it is. So that's what I would like you to talk about. I'd like to talk about today. Now, so basically what I'm gonna do, here is the agenda. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna submit that projects are on the rise. Yet, as you all know, in the project management community, this comes with challenges. They tend to underperform and even fail. Now, I will ask you to watch out for the rise of geopolitical uncertainty in projects, and I will demonstrate that geopolitical uncertainty disrupts projects. And in the end, at the back end of my talk, I will be making a couple of suggestions in terms of how we can handle geopolitical uncertainty. So that's more or less the journey that we're going to have today. So whether you want to send a billionaire on the moon or tackle grand challenges such as COVID-19 or climate change or even global poverty reduction in places like Rwanda or Africa, or build back better with strong and resilient infrastructure in the US and in Europe, you turn to projects as key instruments in the hands of policymakers or the private sector executives to deliver transformation, a key word that Dr. Stein was talking about in his introductory remarks. So people will speak about projectification, others will speak about project economy, still others will speak about project society. It boils down to one thing. Projects are a quintessential commodity to create the future, basically. So they are powerful means to create a better world, hopefully. But we all know very well that they tend to underperform and even fail, as I was saying. Whether it is time overruns, cost blowouts, business case failures, stakeholder disappointment, or even sustainability shortfalls, these are great concerns, not only for executives, project leaders, project teams, project beneficiaries, stakeholders, society, and the whole world. That's a massive challenge. Part of that massive challenge is uncertainty. And the uncertainty surrounding this project can push many projects to fail, or at least disappoint stakeholders. And that uncertainty leads to what I call project behavior. It's like, because of the uncertainty, project takes a life of their own. They take complex outturns and deviate systematically from assigned plans and paths. And that creates trouble for anybody dealing with the delivery of these projects. And when things go wrong, as you know, executives and project managers lose their job. That was the case of TSB Chief Paul Pester. So to use the word that Dr. Stein was using, a transformational project, an IT project, went badly. Okay, it was affecting 19 million people in the UK. And because of that, they could not get access to their bank accounts, basically, which is terrible in our world. So because of that, the TSB CEO lost his job. That was the case as well for Terry Morgan in the UK, who happened to be the chairman of projects such as HS2 and Crossrail. These projects were experiencing delays and cost overruns to a tune of billions. So that man lost his jobs. So the cost of failures is high, including the impacts on beneficiaries and stakeholders and society and the world. Now, what I would like us to focus on is, because uncertainty comes in different shapes and different forms, I would like to focus here on a specific type of uncertainty, which is geopolitical uncertainty in projects. International business scholars and practitioners have been dealing with these issues for ages. Okay, so check these trends in international business. You know, our world is a world of globalization, but for the last 20 years or so, I should say 10 years or so, we've been witnessing what some experts call deglobalization and others call re-globalization. Not everybody agree on what's going on, but what is for sure is that we are facing shifting alliances and the emergence of a battle between global powers such as China and the US. Russia is another global power. You see that with the war between Ukraine and Russia. And in that context, companies are struggling to adjust. Okay, when alliances are shifting, and people that are supposed to be your friend, countries that are supposed to be your friend, as Canada found with the US, are not so more your friend, are not your friends anymore, or not much your friend anymore, then it's a struggle. So companies too are having, this challenge. So there is a shift in the manufacturing industry sector. There is a shift from growth to resilience mindset. So a survey of manufacturing executives found that over 90% of them are delaying investment because of tariffs. The same survey found that 90% of projects are being halted or simply canceled because of geopolitics. And KPMG found that we are living in a world that is more conflict-ridden than ever, or perhaps since 1946. And the Financial Times would suggest that geopolitics compounded with issues such as fragile supply chains, climate change, AI disruption. Geopolitics compounded with all of these issues is creating what they call a perfect storm. So you see, all of this is coming with consequences on projects. And one important example that I can give you is the Belt and Road Initiative from China, which is supposed to help fund and deliver infrastructure, almost all over the world. And in response to that, you have a Build Back Better that is initiative that is being led by the US and other Western countries. I'm talking about the European countries here. You see, in this context, projects are becoming geopolitical weapons in the context of rivalry between global powers. So that's what is going on. And this is creating a rise, what I call the rise of geopolitical uncertainty in the delivery of many projects in the world. So let us consider a couple of examples. Do you recognize this project? The chip manufacturer, NVIDIA, when they learned that Trump was threatening to put tariffs on them, their reaction was to put together a newer project. And that project was an investment to a tune of $500 billion in AI in the US. So you see, that's a geopolitically motivated project. So that's an example. Another example is this one. The $15 billion Istanbul Canal project, that was a project that sought to grant Turkey geopolitical leverage. What kind of geopolitical leverage? Turkey is a country that understands far too well that they need an alternative to the Bosporus Strait that connects Black Sea to Mediterranean. So, and because of the law, of international laws, they are restricted in terms of what they can do. So basically, they are looking for an alternative route that will give them geopolitical control over the Black Sea, basically. That's what they are trying to do. So they put together a $15 billion project so that they can get that geopolitical leverage. So you see, this is also a good example, a powerful example of a geopolitically motivated project. Now, do you recognize this project disruption? So I gave you two examples of geopolitically motivated projects. Now I'm going to give you an example of geopolitical uncertainty related to projects, so geopolitical disruptions. So here is a project. So it is called the name is Euro-Asia Interconnector Project. It's a $2.5 billion project that is trying to sought to connect the electricity grids of countries such as Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. Where is the geopolitical uncertainty here? Well, Turkey and Cyprus are fighting. They are having maritime disputes. At the same time, as you know, Israel is having, issues, to say the least, to other countries in the Middle East. And you have the Russia-Ukraine war, which is creating tensions when it comes to gas shortages. So you see, so anything can happen during the execution of this sort of project. How about this one, close to home? So here is a $100 million contract that sought to connect the northern part of Ontario, the province of Ontario in Canada, to high-speed internet. And he was to connect 15,000 homes and businesses in remote communities in Ontario. So it's such an important project for Ontario. But amid the threat of tariffs from the government, from Trump government, Doug Ford has officially terminated that contract with Elon Musk Starlink. So you see, if you are a project manager there, if you are dealing with, you are delivering this project, then that's a big disruption for you. And you have no control whatsoever about what's going on there. It's not in your hand, okay, at all. Let me give you another worldly example. And this time it's all about the disruption of a whole project portfolio all over the world. So I'm talking about, Doge and Elon Musk shutting down the USAID, a $40 billion agency, a $40 billion a year agency, a 10,000 employees agency, and the most powerful single donor agency in the world. Guess what happens when, without further ado, they shut down USAID? Plenty of projects were halted or canceled, with lots of repercussions on people and including the lives of many in places like Africa. And to a tune of, and when I say in terms of impact, I'm talking about impacts on tens of millions of people. Okay, some studies said it's going to be about 15 million people, but I'm quite sure it's going to be way more than that. And if you are a portfolio manager or a project manager, you find yourself scratching your head in terms of what you're going to do next in your project, if you are lucky enough that your project is not being canceled. How about this one? So when Trump levied 145% tariffs on Chinese goods, President Xi retaliated in a strong move with cancellation of Boeing jets, a contract worth worth $1 billion, sorry. Okay? So it's a contract worth $1 billion. That contract was, put on hold or suspended. And then when, there were less clouds on Chinese goods after a couple of weeks in the spring 2025, then China lifted the ban on Boeing after US deal. So you see, so if you are delivering a project in that context, then geopolitical uncertainty kicks in and is a big problem for you. Now, finally, let us consider this project disruption. So this is the Nord Stream project, which is a project that sought to transport natural gas from Russia to Germany. That was before the Russia-Ukraine war. Guess what happened after the war started? Okay, so this project was in jeopardy, basically, after the war started for geopolitical reasons and tensions between global powers such as the US, Europe, and Russia. Okay, so these are the kind of challenges that project leaders face in this world where geopolitical uncertainty has skyrocketed. Now, what do these disruptions have in common, and why is it a challenge for you, project leaders? Like I said before, you know far too well about uncertainty or the propensity of project to run into trouble. Now, this is not just about mere uncertainty or usual uncertainty. We are not talking about the usual suspects here when it comes to uncertainty. We are talking about a more subtle, more difficult to deal with phenomenon, which is geopolitical uncertainty, and I'm going to define by the tendency for projects to run into trouble when they confront significant policy changes taken by powerful nation states in search of what? In search of foreign policy gains vis-a-vis other rival states. That's what is going on. And in this context, still 84% of 260 business leaders in a survey admit that they were overwhelmed and underprepared to deal with geopolitics and the perfect storm. Now, the question for us is, how do project leaders map geopolitical uncertainty? How do they deal with geopolitical, what I'm going to call geopolitical project behavior, or the complex outturns that projects are going to confront or experience because of geopolitics? I'm going to submit that, based on my research and the reading, that I've never published a paper on geopolitical uncertainty. I need to confess that. But based on the little research that I've done on the topic, I would say there are 5 stances that they can take in practice. And I'll have spent some time on these five stances. The first is, you will know it when you see it. The second is, turn to project management best practices for managing uncertainty. I'm gonna flesh more details on that later. The third one is simply look for the sources of that geopolitical uncertainty. And the fourth one is navigating geopolitical uncertainty and project behavior in a holistical manner. And the last one, at the organizational level, because that's important. If you don't have support, you won't be able to deal with geopolitical uncertainty. So I believe that at the organizational level, you need to build geopolitical capacity as well to be able to deal with uncertainty. For the rest of my talk, I'm going to focus on each of these five stances and, discuss what kind of suggestions, offer a few suggestions for you project leaders out there, whether you are executive tasked with project oversight or project managers tasked with project implementation. So I know far too well that the word politics is a taboo word out there for project managers or project leaders, I should say. How many times have you heard them saying, for instance, that, oh, we are project managers. We are not politicians. We don't do politics. We deliver projects. To me, that's a naive kind of position. To me, project leaders are politicians in their way, in their own ways. Because at the end of the day, they need to make sure that their projects are delivered with the help of powerful stakeholders that can help them get access to the resources and convince beneficiaries and stakeholders that this project is doing good for them. So you doing politics, whether or not you realize you doing politics or not, you doing politics. But if your stance is that in front of geopolitical uncertainties that you will know it when you see it, then it's too late for you. You can't afford to wait for your assigned projects to run into geopolitical trouble. That's too late. And even then, you may face a bias that is called the ostrich effect. Basically, where you look away and put your head in the sand and do not collect the additional information that you need. Maybe because you lack in time, or maybe you are underplaying the importance of the threat. So that's what I can tell you about the first stance. So think deeply about it. I don't think that you can afford to wait until your assigned project runs into geopolitical trouble. So for me, this is not a good stance. Second stance. Every project leader knows very well about these common practices when it comes to risk management. Prepare a risk register, prepare a contingency plan. Okay, for instance, for your budget. Okay, you are well aware of that, so I'm not going to belabor that point. So basically, what I'm going to say, however, is that if that's what you want to do, this is what I call in my book, Managing Fuzzy Projects in 3D, the understand, reduce, respond attitude to risk. Risk being something that is calculable or quantifiable, and uncertainty being here something that is not quantifiable. So in the case of risk, you might be able to assign probabilities to the geopolitical events occurrence. In the case of uncertainty, that's very, very difficult to do. So to give you an example, for instance, you have the UK government that prescribe the use of statistical risk modeling and RCF in particular to de-risk. When I mean RCF, I'm talking about reference class forecasting, to de-risk projects. Still, many projects use RCF and they were concerned or confronted with cost overruns. Take HS2, for instance. So that understand, risk, reduce, respond attitude to risk is not going to work in the face of geopolitical uncertainty, believe me. So perhaps a better attitude would be understand, embrace, and adapt in the face of uncertainty. That's the attitude that we use, remember, during COVID-19 when it comes to the development of vaccine, of the hope vaccine, or for mass vaccination, because we learn to adjust the development of the vaccines and mass vaccinations with the emergence of new variants, you see? And that is the attitude that is being used for that geopolitically motivated project in Turkey that I was talking about at the beginning of this presentation. So guess what they did? These guys, they saw the project, for better or for worse, as a patriotic kind of symbol of New Turkey, right? So for them, they did not seek to reduce uncertainty through rigid planning at all, not at all. Quite the contrary, what they did, they took uncertainty as strategic opportunity and started the project without, you won't believe it, setting a clear-cut timeline, securing financing before initiation, locking down costs, achieving consensus among political parties, getting public support, or even resolving environmental and legal issues. That's a good example of embracing uncertainty. Though, you know, some stakeholders will say it's a bad example of project delivery. Now let us move to the third stance. The third stance is basically you try to understand the different sources of geopolitical uncertainty there. I would submit that there are at least two categories or types of geopolitical uncertainty. So if you are an international project leader, executive, or or project manager, you've been dealing with geopolitical uncertainty for ages, like I said before. So geopolitics is the struggle as defined by Flint, a distinguished professor of geopolitics. It is the struggle over the control of geographical entities with an international and global dimension, and the use of such geographical entities for political advantage. It's all about maps, borders, power, and so on and so forth. But for us in business, geopolitics is not just about maps and borders. It's also about, control, advantage, political advantage, and economic advantage. And in this day and age, or in which I'm going to call the Trump era, where politics trumps economics, where nationalistic protectionism trumps free business, if you want, or globalization, well, there is another phenomenon that many project leaders are not aware of. There is another word that is seldom used. That's the word geoeconomics. That's another powerful source of geopolitical uncertainty here. So Financial Times, Gillian Tate will define geoeconomics as the recent case where tech, trade, finance, and military policies are mingling in a manner not seen during the neoliberal age. So basically, it's all about using financial and economic policies, or even industry policies, if you want, to beat your rivals, to win the battle of global competition, or if you prefer, the battle of global power competition. So these are two key powerful sources of geopolitical uncertainty nowadays. So it might be from a geopolitics standpoint or from a geoeconomics standpoint. So you see, basically, if you consider the Ukraine-Russia war, it falls within it will fall within the bucket of geopolitics, at least from the Russian standpoint. You understand what I mean? Okay? So when you consider Trump tariffs, it falls within the realm of geoeconomics, first and foremost. Okay? Trump wants the manufacturing, any manufacturing going out there, to be done basically in the US, so that the jobs created and the benefits of all of these investment or reinvestment, I should say, in manufacturing in the US stay in the US, so that will give competitive advantage to the US from an economic standpoint, and hopefully from a political standpoint. Okay, so it's the use of economic and financial and industry policies for controlling, for instance, trade, international trade. So you see, in this context, we face trade wars, tariff hikes, and sudden reversals of policies. And that's a challenge for any project leader out there. Now, you can try to tackle the issue holistically. Okay? How can you do that? Well, I'm going to give you 3 suggestions. The first is you got to widen your own horizon and develop your own capacity. Because if you don't do so, then you're not going to be able to deal with geopolitics. How do you widen your horizon and develop your capacity? The first thing that comes to mind is that you need to invest in your geopolitical acumen and skills. So you see, if you are a project leader and you are not aware of a foreign policy environment, then you are asking for trouble. You need to educate yourself big time. The second suggestion is you need to scan the geopolitical landscape widely and monitor threats and opportunity as well as project performance assiduously. Because geopolitics is not just about the downside of things. It's also about the upside of things. Geopolitics is not about only threats. It's also about opportunities. So if you consider the NVIDIA case, the $5 billion investment into AI, they see geopolitics as, they see the upside of geopolitics there. That's the reason why they were doing the investment, right? In other cases, you need to get ready for the threats that comes with geopolitics. The third suggestion is, many of you are familiar with it, is scenario planning and cultivating the agility to seize these opportunities and reducing the threats in the geopolitical landscape. To give you an example of scenario planning, in the case of the 2.5 billion Euro-Asia interconnector project, like I said, that sought to connect the electricity grids of countries such as Greece, Cyprus, and Israel through the world's largest and deepest subsea electricity cable. Well, the scenario planning included a stable project timeline, despite the geopolitical tensions. That's a good aspect. Another aspect is political fallout or maritime showdown with Turkey. Remember, I was talking about maritime disputes between Turkey and Cyprus, and gas shortages making the need for interconnectivity urgent. Okay, so how am I doing with time? Yes, I think we are okay. So for each of these scenarios, they came up with a specific response. The first response was to explore alternative diplomatic channels, such as Greece and Egypt energy dialogue. The second was, about putting together insurance and security strategies for maritime construction. And the third was fast-tracking the project so that if the energy crisis is worsened, then we can get the benefits as quickly as possible. So that's an example of how scenario planning is being used in a concrete project for dealing with geopolitical uncertainty. Now, it's good to say that you want to do scenario planning, but how can you deal with what I call geopolitical project behavior? Again, the fact that the project suddenly takes complex outturns and deviates systematically from assigned plans and paths due to these geopolitical disruptions. So perhaps Nassim Taleb's theory of resilience and anti-fragility can help here. So basically, when you are facing sudden reversals of policy, as we have seen with Trump's, okay, today is 20%, tomorrow is going to be 65%, okay, and the day after is going to be 145%, okay, you see? So when you see this kind of sudden reversal of tariffs or sudden geopolitical disruptions, then the first thing that you might want to do is ask yourself, is the project a fragile one? That is, it might lose value in the face of that disruption and never recover. The second thing is your project resilient? That is, it will lose value in the face of that disruption, but it can recapture that value later. And the last one is your project anti-fragile? That is, it may lose but regain value as a result of disruption. So these are things that you need to ask yourself first. Second, you need to think in terms of putting together strategies. You have two examples of strategies that you can use. The first is what authors such as Usher et al. Describe in, they wrote a chapter in my Cambridge, the Cambridge Handbook of Project Behavior that I co-authored with the great Jeff Pinto. The book is going to be out in just a couple of days, 28th of August. That's the day. So there is a chapter in that book about Nassim Taleb theory of resilience and anti-fragility and the application of it to projects. So I'm borrowing these ideas here in the context of geopolitical uncertainty. Now, what am I talking about here? So in terms of strategies. So the first strategy is what is being called a preparatory strategy, or if you prefer, a barbell strategy, for instance. The idea here is to reduce the downside while keeping the upside of a disruption. Now, how can you do that in a more practical sense? You need to ask yourself, what are the aspects of the project that are more or less susceptible to geopolitics? So if you've deemed that the geopolitical uncertainty is low, then you invest in what is being called by Nassim Taleb the minimum requirements that the project must fulfill to survive in the face of a disruption. For instance, you might want to preserve key infrastructure as a risk mitigation measure in your project. Alternatively, if you deem the disruption to be high uncertainty, then you need to invest in high reward opportunities that will arise in the wake of a disruption. A good example is you need to invest in piloting new technology so that you can maximize potential benefits, in the wake of a disruption. So this is another example that you might use when it comes to preparatory strategies. Now, let us move to remedial strategies. Okay, the disruption has happened and that you need to react and do something about it, basically. So how do you do that? The first thing that comes to mind, if you take a resilience mindset, so your project might lose value, but recapture it, basically. If you take that mindset, what you do is you revise your project plan to achieve the initial target goals. So these kind of strategies are kind of, let us say, they are aligned with the agility mindset, basically. Okay? And Dr. Stein was talking about agility in his introductory remarks. So you revise project plan to achieve initial target goals. Or you terminate the project if you deem the project to be fragile, which means that it might never recuperate value. It will lose value and never recuperate value. If you deem the project to be anti-fragile, and there is some subjectivity involved here, because you are assessing, in your scenario planning, you are assessing things, the geopolitical events, their occurrence, and the consequences that they're gonna have in terms of impact on your project, right? And that's foresight, basically. We're not talking about hindsight here, that's foresight. So because it's foresight, then you might deem that the project is anti-fragile, so you might lose value in the face of disruption, but reclaim that value and even have more value being created after the disruption. So these are a couple of ideas that might help you, leaders in practice there, when you are facing geopolitical disruptions. And to finish, you might want to build geopolitical capacity at the organizational level. And because geopolitical capacity in these agitated times becomes a strategic asset in the hands of organizations and the policymakers and chief and CEOs, basically. So the first thing that you might want to do, perhaps, is to appoint a chief geopolitical officer. That's a possibility. Will it solve all geopolitical problems? Not sure about that, but it's in the realm of possible things that you can do. The second thing that you need to do is that you need to consider geopolitical capacity as a strategic asset. To give you an example, in the wake of the Tohoku earthquake or tsunami in March 2021, Toyota was not able to sell their cars, right? They were not able to make cars, they were not able to sell cars. So what they did, they learned from that and move away from the just-in-time approach to what they call a just-in-case approach, where, they are thinking ahead of time of possible disruptions to their supply chains so that there are cars that are available that they can sell at any time. This is an example of building geopolitical capacity to deal with unexpected or sudden disruptions. Okay, so this is just an example for you. So I'm going to stop there for the sake of time, and I hope that these couple of insights about the heightened geopolitical uncertainty that surround the delivery of projects in our times, I hope that they were useful to you. Thanks to Northeastern for the invite, and wishing you a great symposium.
Well, Dr. Ika, I couldn't have asked for anything more. If you consider the timeliness of what you said, and if people take what you said to heart about the steps and the ideas that might be taken in order to adjust and correct for some of the issues you addressed, we could certainly have a much better world related to project management and the people that that are dealing with some of these important, unbelievably important projects like the ones you laid out, that are so influenced and impacted by the geopolitical environment. We have just a few more minutes, and I know it's not standard policy to have the keynote speaker address any question, but if you would not mind, and I know we have about 5 minutes left, I would love to ask you a question that's been going on in my mind since you began talking.
Sure.
And I will ask anyone else who, if they have a question, if we have time, we'd be glad to try. But everything you said, when I think of geopolitics and when I think of projects at that level, I think of people who are in their 50s, their 60s, even their 70s, and maybe even 80s, who knows? These are people who are seasoned, have been around for a very long time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be placed in responsibility for such magnanimous large projects. But I want to bring this down maybe to a lower level. My colleagues on this on the symposium team are project management instructors, professors who teach, program directors, program leads. They're influenced what is being taught. Obviously, you do the same. You're in project, you teach. So my question for you is very simple. Everything you said depends on people changing an attitude. Well, that's people 50, 60, and 70. It won't happen very easily. I can tell you from experience, very difficult to change my attitude on how I do things. So my question to you is, as my colleagues and people in your field teach project management, maybe especially at the graduate level, people who are still, especially, certainly at the undergraduate, but at the graduate, at the very least, where they are a little more seasoned, what can we do with our educational system to enhance their understanding of how to take those steps, those 5 steps that you identified so clearly and it makes so much sense? How can we teach that? Do we need to, for instance, include a political science course as a requirement for project management graduates? We, for instance, right now, and I'll finish with this, we include concentrations, and one of the most popular ones of my program, leadership. In leadership, we teach, of course, human behavior, how to think about how people think, how they lead, and maybe that will help them understand how to deal with some of the issues you identified. But I don't think that's enough. To understand the geopolitical takes some more. So should we include mandatory courses for these rising project management leaders to understand better the challenges they will be dealing with at this level? Just a thought.
Dr. Stein, you can't be more right. I'm glad you're asking the question. And that's a topical question for anybody that is interested or invested in project management education. Of course, there are two schools of thought that come to mind. The first school of thought is we need to create, like you suggested, a new course that is focused on political science, or what I'm going to call geopolitics. Or, to give it a more fancy name, I'm going to call it a course on geopolitical project behavior, basically. That will be a fascinating one to prepare and deliver for students, where, they will specifically approach questions surrounding geopolitics and geoeconomics and how they relate to projects, not only at the initiation phase, but at the planning phase, as well as during the execution and the evaluation phase. That will be a wonderful course to prepare. Okay, I'll be personally interested in designing and teaching such a class. But we have a second school of thought. The second school of thought is geopolitics or geoeconomics. These are complex issues that cut across different disciplines, including political science, risk management, for sure, okay? And of course, project management, if you want. So therefore, could a single course teach our students the skills that they desperately need to deal with the heightened challenge of geopolitics? I'm not quite sure. So what we need is not just a course, okay? What we need is a change in mindset, as you suggested. And you're right to suggest, again, that many people will not change their attitude to uncertainty or geopolitical uncertainty, for that matter. But in this case, they have no choice because they don't control much what's going on there. I think because they don't control much what's going on there, see the situation in which Canada is now. From a policy level, foreign policy level, and from an economic level. If Canada has thought about the possibility that the US will be doing, sorry for the term, but in political terms, that's the best term that Canada can use right now. For this political shit coming from the US, I think we'll not be in such a bad situation now. So I suspect that those people working out there have no choice but to deal with these issues. So because they have no choice but to deal with these issues, we also need, we in the education sector, to change our mindset. Otherwise, our teachings are not timely. So let us inject a bit of geopolitics considerations in our project design classes. Let us talk about the impact of geopolitical uncertainty on planning. Let us talk about the impact of geopolitical uncertainty on project execution classes and the seminars that we are giving. That will be my take.
Wow. Well, when your name came up as a candidate for asking for to be our introductory speaker, the keynote speaker, I had not had a chance to meet you. I did not, and I do not work in project management. My area is leadership, but I now understand why your name came up so enthusiastically, because the information and your background and what you provided us was absolutely priceless. This was such a good way to start this symposium. You just laid it out so absolutely beautifully with using your experience level, your knowledge, your academic, and of course the publications that you've already been involved with just really support everything. So I can't say enough in telling you how much we appreciate on behalf of the symposium committee and everyone who's been here. Thank you for what you did. I for one just was very excited to hear what your message, and it makes so much sense. So, Dr. Ika, thank you so much, Professor, for being here with us and for the message and for the information you raised. And I honestly hope, bottom line, as we hope in all of symposiums, is that people will take all of this to heart, and change will happen as a result of what they heard. So again, Dr. Ika, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the best. We know for those who don't know, Dr. Ika is in Africa right now for a symposium as well in person. And so he travels quite a bit. So the fact that he would take the time to spend with us means a great deal to us on this in the symposium and for this for the effort that we're putting together. So thank you very much, Dr. Ika, and we wish you the best, a safe trip home, and continued success. And again, we appreciate this introductory message that is so valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Stein, for being so kind with me, and thanks to Northeastern for being so kind with me, as always. So I wish you a wonderful symposium, and I'm quite sure that you're going to spread the word about the importance of project leadership, including geopolitical uncertainty and the need for transformation through projects.
We certainly will. Thank you so much. And with that, we will take a break for the next about 12 or 13, maybe 13 minutes. Our next presentation is at 10:15, and I know I see that our team is already there. So we'll be back at 10:15 Eastern time, and looking forward to seeing everybody come back. Thank you very much.
Bye for now.